Good evening, everybody. My name is Sandro Stephen. I am with Indian Angel Network. On behalf of Indian Angel Network, I welcome you all to the virtual Chayatine session. This is the third Chayatine series, virtual series that we started with. Chayatine is a series of masterclass that aims to provide comprehensive insights to young entrepreneurs, early stage startups, business enthusiasts. Each session is conducted by industry stalwarts and explore various aspects of startup ecosystem, ranging from validating business ideas to building brands, term sheet to successful fundraising strategies and more. This year, Chayatine is powered with our partner Amazon Web Services, which brings in the masterclass series. And today's series that we're talking about today is MVP to product market fit. Product market fit means your product and its value proposition resonate with your target group. It means that the problem you solve and the way it is solved reflects the need of your audience. The path to product market fit is an iterative and systematic process of building strong market validation. Proof of concept, building prototypes, and launching MVP are vital stage along the way. When you when your MVP is valuable, easy to use, you have found product market fit. But can you always feel product market fit when it's happening, or is it always a discrete big bang event? Is it true that once you achieve product market fit, you cannot lose it, or you do not have to sweat for competition any longer? Chai Time is here today to bust many of such myths. Product market fit is one of the most important concepts, yet it is one of the least well defined. Our esteemed speaker, Mr. Prashant Pahade, will share his insight on how to build a minimum viable product and achieve product market fit. Mr. Prashant Pahade, a serial entrepreneur, investor, veteran of three successful Silicon Valley startups. Prashant Pahade has a total of about 20 plus years of experience in building and leading global sales, customer service, product development, operations for semiconductor, EDA, and SaaS companies. He has a successful track record of creating and leading mass development, product development to mass development, thereby increasing valuation of many startups. Mr. Pahade is a customer success thought leader. His current venture, which is CS First, provides customer success to scale to Silicon Valley SaaS companies, delivering a great customer experience, resulting to over 100 NNR. Today, Mr. Pahade is a mentor to many SaaS entrepreneurs, helping them with product, go-to-market, sales strategy. He is also an angel investor at ION, and his current portfolio comprises of active investments in companies such as Public Vibe, Automated by Skylark Drones, Nayam, and Kogos. He serves as a lead investor and sits on the board of a couple of these companies and many more. Without further ado, I hand over to Mr. Pahade to kind of share more insight on product market fit. Just one notice for the audience here. Please note that you can write down all the questions that you have in the chat box, and we will take it up towards the end of the session. Sir, over to you.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Sandro. Good evening, everyone. I'm actually calling you, here in California. It's 5 a.m. early morning. So welcome you all. I'm really excited to share my startup experience with you today. Indian startup ecosystem, as you know, is kind of its golden age had just arrived. So we all are, really basically out for some great, amazing ride for next 15, 20 years, right? So as an entrepreneur, as an investor, this is the best time to be, right? So next 10, 20 years, it's a time for Indian startup ecosystem with the potential and opportunity that we have at our hand. It can create a similar impact globally like what China did for manufacturing. I truly believe that. So let me bring up my slides. Sandro, I'll just share my screen here. Just let me know if you can see that. Can you see it?
Yes, it is visible.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you so much. 1 second. So, as I was saying, so I spend a lot of my time here in Silicon Valley, work for several enterprise software as well as SaaS companies. I've been also been lucky enough to been through three successful startups, including some of my own. And so, naturally, the insight that I'll be sharing would be coming from enterprise software slash SaaS companies. But at the same time, many of them would be equally applicable to different kind of software startups as well, right? Your B2C, B2B2C, and so on, right? As well as your consumer-centric startups. So I will try to share some of my insight on that. Let me go to the next slide. So, let's start with typical early stage startup journey, right? So typical, as Sandro already talked about it, stages that will be going through ideation, moving on to MVP, taking that MVP to the product and figuring out whether you have established product market fit, and then getting ready to go to market at scale, right? So this, at least these first four stages of your startup, right? They are the most crucial, the most challenging. They're also the most vulnerable stages of your startup journey, right? Most of the companies, you'll find that typically they fail during the early stage, right? As you know, like startup failure rate is very high, like over 90% of the startup basically fail. And many of them end up failing in early stages of product market fit, right? Or prior to product market fit. So it's really critical. One of the key things in during this early stages, you basically develop some great habit in terms of optimizing your learning, taking a corrective action, making some changes on the strategy side, on the product side, on the customer side, on the sales side. So really going through that cycle iteratively, which I will talk about in more detail. But point here is like this, just the way it is, like every startup creates its own path. It's a very unique journey for every startup. So it feels like a roller coaster ride. At 1 minute, you will think that you are taken over the world. Very next minute, you will feel like, what the hell you got yourself into. So it's a huge roller coaster ride, right? That's just the way every startup goes through, right? It's no matter how often you start, right? Even for serial entrepreneurs, the experience is very similar. Just because I went through prior startup journey, it doesn't mean that my next startup journey would be smooth. It's just, some things that I'm more wiser per se, but it's still extremely challenging. So moving on to next slide, right? The most important thing is how do you really, what's the basis of your startup, right? How do you really get started with? I mean, are you like engineer, right, who really fancies some new technology? You just happen to working on some new technology which you're really passionate about, and you decide to build something and then taking it to the market to see who can use that, right? And it's essentially your solution finding a problem versus someone, right, who has really found some need, right, some hidden need of a customer, right? Based on that need, he is basically come up with some hypothesis, and then he's going to basically want to start the company. So it is so common for many of the engineers to really come up with essentially they're more passionate about the product and technology. They love more their product and technology instead of really being passionate about the problem they are trying to solve. So usually you will find that, those kind of companies, it's a long runway. They're more prone to fail. So it's extremely important that you start with the problem in mind, right? Business exists because somebody has really tried to uncover some sort of unmet, unarticulated need, and business is satisfying that, and that's why the business exists. That's essentially the basis of your business, right? So that's why it is important to find the problem and then go and figure out what the solution is. So once you find out what that unmet hidden need is, you really need to figure it out how big your market is going to be for this, right? What type of personas will be who are running into the problem, then who would be potentially using your solution. You really have to have some good understanding upfront, right? You at least on these few things, you have to have some clarity before you really get and start writing the first line of code. So I will talk about some of this in more detail, but I personally I would like to share one of my experience. One of the companies I work for, so CEO, the CEO of this company, a charismatic person. So anytime any new product will get started, he would expect their product manager to come up with a press release. In 90s, the way the products were launched, they actually launched through the press release. So what would that press release would contain? It would clearly articulate what problem this particular product is solving, right? Who are the potential users, and how how their solution is going to be better than anybody else, right? And when it would be available. So it's really clearly articulating that, right? So you would insist on having that sort of clarity before you start working on the product. So in essence is really that, as I said earlier, like start with the problem in mind. I can't iterate that enough times, right? It's really important. So going from idea to MVP, this is the stage essentially problem, you are trying to validate the problem solution fit, right? That's really what you are going through. And, literally from starting with the idea till you achieve that product market fit, it's really it's an iterative cycle, right? You come up with some hypothesis. So hypothesis could be that, hey, I basically, I have this idea, this particular engineering application usually say takes 10, so it takes 10 hours to run. The runtime is 24 hours for this. And you literally have to run 10 iteration for this. So you basically come up with some idea where you potentially can reduce the runtime from 10 hours to 1 hour, right? Almost 10x improvement. And you think that you will be able to impact the overall cycle time, right? From in terms of productivity, you probably will be able to improve that 2 to 3x. Now that's a clear-cut definition of the hypothesis that you have come up with, right? So you identified the problem. You think that you have a solution which is clearly measurable. So you basically at this stage you start going through this iteration, right? First and foremost is identifying the people that you're going to talk to. You start contacting them, prepare a list of questions that you want to ask them. So idea is like at least the interviews that you're going to conduct, I would say ideally 10 to 20 customers is a good number to go with. Prepare the list of questionnaires that you want to go and run by those customers, the potential users that you want to go to. This could be your friends, it could be your colleagues, it could be your customers that you worked with in the past, or it could be some random user that you just reached out through LinkedIn. So you prepare the list of questionnaires. The idea, when you prepare the questionnaires, right, come up with open-ended questions, right? These are the questions, something, hey, how would you solve this problem? Rather than saying, how would this solution would help you? Rather than saying that, is this solution useful? So the answer is obviously going to be yes or no. So don't go with that. Lead with very open-ended questions to your customers or to your potential people that you'll be interviewing with. So at early stage, you'll be preparing questionnaire, talking to the people, understand their feedback, right? You basically learn from that, analyze those feedback, then capture that in your idea, then go and adjust your hypothesis again. Next time you may be able to come up with some solution idea. So go and validate that solution, go through the same build, measure, learn cycle. And then you go through, once you go through this 2-3 iteration, the idea really is to, are you basically tackling a problem? Is that a must solve problem? Is this a burning issue for this particular problem? Is this a burning issue? Or is this worth solving? Is this problem big enough where I can get funded? I'm going to be passionate about solving this. So these are the type of questions that you are trying to answer in these early interactions, right? Before you start writing any single line of code. The idea is really the solution that you want to come up with, right, for this problem has to be at least 10x better for you to have sustainable long-term advantage, right? Competitive advantage. So it's really critical. So as I said earlier, in early iteration that you'll be going through, it's basically formal talks, interviews, and all that. Once you get some idea what the solution would look like, then you really at that stage, you can build some prototype. It could be simple PowerPoint showing what is input, what is the potential output, right? It could be some interactive prototype. I find Figma is a great tool to come up with the interactive prototype. Literally within a day or so, you can come up with a bunch of interactive screens. And the advantage there is once you show that to your customer, to your potential candidate that you are talking to, they can see where you're coming from, right? They have much better idea. So at least this is the next stage in terms of validating your hypothesis. And then again, you may be going through a few more iterations of this. And somewhere down the road, you will start developing certain ideas in terms of the minimum viable product that you want to build, right? It's really like what kind of features that you need. what is a must have. So one thing you really need to learn during this cycling process is, say, you have to learn to say no to many things. You really have to hone in on things that are absolutely must have. Just go with that. Don't try to over engineer your MVP. Should be just bare enough for, so that customer can see the value that you're trying to deliver through that MVP. If you're, say, if it's a web app, right, don't try to build any fancy website. Just a simple vanilla website is good enough. Don't need to worry about fancy UI UX or all the bells and whistles that product could have, because you will be going through several iterations of this MVP alone. You think that you will be going through 5 iterations, very likely you will go through 20 iterations. The idea here is go through these experiments as quickly as possible, maximize your learning, find the optimal path to learning. And once you capture that, typically I would say for most of the application that you're trying to develop, 2-3 weeks of development time for MVP is good enough, right? Unless you have this enterprise application, it could be weeks then, right? But for, by and large, today's application, I think generally 2 to 3 weeks is a pretty good time frame. So once your MVP is ready, and as Sandra was saying earlier, which is really the topic of today's conversation, is like product market fit, right? Going from MVP to product market fit. So what is product market fit, right? How do you know you have really achieved product market fit? Product market fit, this is a term which is coined by Mark Anderson. Here in Silicon Valley, he's a big legend, right? As you must have heard, he's a well-known VC. So the VC firm called Mark Anderson, Horowitz and Anderson, so A16Z firm. He was also the creator of Mozilla and Netscape browsers. So he actually coined this term back in 2008 and 9. Even when he coined this term, the definition he came up with was pretty vague, very subjective, right? It wasn't very quantifiable. So as Sandra was saying, right, how do you really come up with product market fit? How do you really know if you achieved it? What's a scientific way to measure the product market fit, right? Is there any data-driven science behind this? So at least in SaaS world, right, and this basically it's subscription driven, right? So customer is going to get the value. If the one way of measure the customer is getting a value out of your product, is he renewing your license, right? Is he renewing your deal? So customer retention, which is it's a core to any SaaS business, that's a basically best indicator to measure the value customer is getting. If customer is consistently renewing the license, yes, means he's getting value out of it. But it's a lagging indicator. And as a startup, through this early stage of startups, you don't have time for somebody to go and renew and then only know that, oh, okay, this is a customer finding value. Now this customer retention matrix is sort of used one way of looking at product market fit. But that's really, as I said, it's a lagging indicator. So you really need more indicator of customer retention, like a leading indicator of customer retention. So, while searching for, while I was researching for this topic, and I actually have been using this indicator, but found a more scientific way of approaching to this. So this basically the things that I would be sharing with this framework, which was actually defined by Mark Roberg. He's a Harvard professor. He was also the ex-chief revenue officer of HubSpot. And he also written a very good book. If you guys are really interested, and as you go and start building your sales, your marketing team, he has written a book on data-driven sales, right? Accelerating the sales using data. So I would highly recommend that book. So it's so this person has come up with this overall framework. So what did this framework consist of? Really, if first and foremost, you need to define what that customer success leading indicator is, right? If that indicator is true, if you made the product market fit, if the customer success indicator is true, if certain percentage of the customer achieves certain events over certain amount of time. So what that really means, right? Say, let's say you actually have some app, right? That basically you're trying to measure how often the people will be using that app every day, right? So you're trying to go after DAU metrics, MAU metrics. So it's a clearly measurable goal. with time frame around it. So in case of these apps, it's a daily matrix, right? Certain apps could be weekly, certain apps could be monthly. So that time frame will keep changing. But then events that you are monitoring, that is the most important aspect here, right? So let's, as I was saying earlier, right? So if I'm trying to so the company that I work with, a public wipe, so they're, the way they were measuring indicators, their leading edge, like it's customer spending enough time in their app. Like, are the 70% of their users are daily active users, how much time they are spending every month. So those type of indicators they were monitoring. So there's some of the examples that are given here. Slack. So Slack, the way Slack was monitoring their customer indicator, customer retention indicator, like if 70% of the customers send 2000 plus team messages in 30 days, means the Slack is providing a value to their customer, right? It's essentially their customer retention matrix. For Dropbox, if 80% of the customer upload one file in one folder on one device within 1 hour, that's an indicator of customer finding a value in using Dropbox. So in this case, it was on per hour basis versus Slack was 30-day basis. And now HubSpot, it's an enterprise software company, right? So their platform, obviously for enterprise platform company, the number of features that they have. So if percentage of features people use it in certain time frame, then you have product market. Then you have basically some measure of product market fit, right? So this is how you look at this. So if 60 to 80% of your customers are achieving these events in the time frame that you are monitoring, you actually have a product market fit. So one important thing here, that E is a very, very critical factor here, right? It has to be a binary. It should be factual. You should be able to measure it, whether somebody downloaded your app or not. It's a binary, right? There is no guessing work here. It's a binary in nature. Should be able to instrument these events, right? You have to be able to instrument this, because it's not just about measuring the product market fit during this phase, but as company progresses, as you establish your product market fit, you should be able to instrument this and build on top of these indicators, right? So that's why it's really important that right from the beginning, you should be able to figure it out what that customer success leading indicator is. And important thing is it should be aligned with the value proposition that you have for your customers, right? If you are trying to solve, improving the productivity, then your indicator should be able to measure that, right? Should be able to indicate that you are indeed improving overall productivity for your end user. So that, and then idea of the time frame, it should be as short as possible, because at the early stage you are really trying to maximize your learning, right? You quickly going through iteration. So that's why make this as short as possible. This should almost like, every time you have certain deadline, things starts moving, right? And the same goes here. So you should really go with the same vigor that you go for any typical software release, right? Even for at this early stage, you should have that vigor to go through these iterations very quickly, make sure customers are really achieving, number of customers achieving certain milestone that you are trying to monitor. So people who are not familiar with what is customer success, I know I've been talking about customer success, but customer success is a function of SaaS companies, which is essentially focus. SaaS business is a subscription based, right? People go through renewals. It could be monthly renewal, it could be yearly renewal, it could be 2-3 year renewal, right? So it's a subscription driven. If customer doesn't find the value in your product, he's not going to renew that. So this particular function in SaaS companies, which actually is focused on helping customer get the most out of your product, making sure that customer gets the desired outcome using your solution. So that's what customer success is. Just want to reiterate that because I've been talking about it and some of you may or may not be familiar. So once you basically achieve this product market fit, right? So how do you really keep track of the progress of product market fit, right? So this particular cohort analysis chart, it's a great way to do it. I use this and I find this very useful. So at the left side of this chart, as you can see, it actually shows the number of customer acquired each month, right? And then on the right side, basically, the the customers achieving, that early customer retention indicator, right? So that's a percentage of those customer hitting that number. So you start capturing that month over month. So in this particular example, this company was trying to measure, early customer retention indicator every 2 months. They were monitoring one event. So, and as you could see, as they started engaging each month, the number keeps increasing. At this stage, you basically start, based on the feedback that you get from those customers, you go refine your product, you go refine your overall, sales strategy, you go refine your, certain features that they are asking for, you add a whole lot of more things. So especially in the early stage, as you're going from initial iterations of MVP, it's all about refining the product. And as the product is getting refined, as your strategy is getting refined, you can see that the overall number keeps getting better over the time. And as you come towards October, November, in this particular case, you are close to achieving that product market fit, right? So this chart, I find it's very useful. Nice thing about this is it allows you to, how things are progressing over the time. It indicates that. So it's kind of pushing you. You can measure the impact of your product adoption on a timely basis. And once you hit 60, 70, what is the goal of product market fit? It's really when to know when to scale and how to scale, right? That's what you are trying to figure it out during this phase, because it is also critical to go and, if you want to go and if you feel that you are achieving that product market fit, you quickly want to go and, start worrying about scaling and then worrying about the funding and so on, right? That's why it's very, very critical to being able to measure your product market fit so that you are ready for the next stages of the growth of your company. Now, think that I just discussed this monitoring events and using this code analysis. If you are an enterprise software company, these charts may not really help you. So typically the way customer retention metrics are measured in enterprise world is really what you call is health metrics. So typically for any account, right? For any account, is your account healthy? Are they getting a value from your? So based on certain parameters, right? Have they adopted your solution quickly? Have they been able to integrate your product into their ecosystem, right? How often they are using it? How many users they are using it? Have they been running into any problems? So your health matrix is based on that. So for enterprise software startups, I think you also have to start looking at those metrics to measure your product market fit, right? So again, the number there would still be same that because for enterprise companies, the sales cycles are pretty long, right? In a year, you may be able to sign 4 to 5 customers in the early stage, right? So in those out of 4 to 5 customers, if 5 out of those 5 customers, if 4 of them are renewing renewing, means you have product market fit. So for those kind, that's kind of matrix is a lot more useful for enterprise software companies. So now going from MVP to product market fit, right? How do you go on doing about it? As I said earlier, the goal for this phase, it's all about customer retention. Once your MVP is ready, now the next question is who you go after, right? Who should be your target market that you want to go after? Should I be going after a big company and fancy about their big logo, which I think would help me with my funding, or should you be going with a small, nimble company or startup that will be more willing to work with you? So your early adopters, these companies at the early, small, medium companies, small, medium startups are a lot more nimble to work with, right? They are obviously trying to solve some burning issues. They are a lot more willing to work with you. Their buying process is very simple compared to big enterprise companies. They are willing to share a lot of the feedback with you. They are essentially, willing to give you some being the reference for once they become your customer. That's extremely valuable, because here idea is not about getting a big logo, and idea is really to quickly learn from your customer, co-create the solution with them. If you go to big company, challenge there is, first of all, they have long sales cycle, right? They would expect you to, so their stringent buying process. They would expect you to sign the NDAs. Even just signing the NDAs itself can take weeks. Once you sign the NDAs, they would expect to, to have the product should have all the bells and whistles before they can even start using it, right? And then also, if once they start using it, if they run into problem, they will be, they will not be willing to share that data with you. Many times you want to take, create a test case or take that test case back to your back to your office, go back to your development team and resolve those issues. Pretty common for enterprise software companies. So those are not the companies to engage with at this stage, right? The time for engaging with companies somewhere down the road, but not at the early stage. And once you identify these companies that you want to engage with, so it's all, who are the people you want to work with? Typically, these are the kind of people called as early adopters. These people take a pride, they really enjoy working on new technology, solving the problem. They love to work with you, innovate the solution with you, right? They are happy reference for you. So those are the type of people that you want to engage with, right? Not the people who are laggards. So typically what you will find in the big companies are the people laggard, right? They just want to work in a very stringent environment. So I would highly recommend, as in when you are ready with your MVP, find these type of people. They are extremely valuable. They will be able to help you shape up the product. Now, once you identify a startup for working with them, then the go-to-market playbook for during this phase, it's basically you want to win at all cost. And when I'm saying win at all cost, I don't mean by pricing. It's really, as I was saying earlier, it's really customer success driven metric. It's all about customer using that product, adopting that product, and continuously finding the value of that product. So you really have to work extremely hard for this customer to adopt and use this product, which is really what your win is at this stage, right? And one of the things that as you start working with during this phase, be cognizant about some of the customer success metrics that you eventually want to start monitoring as and when companies start scaling up, right? Some of them could be implementation time, right? How much implementation time takes. So your idea is really to reduce the overall implementation time for your solution. It should be able to run right out of your box. Early stage, it may take a lot of time. So this is a very critical metrics to monitor. Another critical metrics to monitor as you start working with the customer, you will realize that your product has to coexist with a bunch of other tool stack that your customer has, and then figure out which are the most commonly used tool stack. It could be just a Salesforce that your applications need to work with, or it could be Zendesk, or it could be Freshdesk. So be cognizant of that, and then go refine it. Go and take that feedback, refine your product based on that, and continue. It's really key as you start growing up, scaling up. Your product needs to coexist in your customer environment. So that is something to be cognizant about at this stage. Another, the most critical thing, right? All your early engagement should be founder driven. Paul Graham, as you may have heard, he's a co-founder of YC Combinator. He coined this term: don't do things that scale. So as a developer, as a founder, the first instinct is, geez, if I go start working with the customer day in, day out, how will I be able to scale this business? How will I be able to scale this whole engagement process moving forward? At this stage of the company, it's not about scaling. You have to be there out there with the customer, understand their pain point firsthand, put yourself into their shoe. If you have to go and install the product, you do it for that customer. Take their use case, you run it for them, you analyze along with them, understand the issues and take his feedback. Go back to go back to the drawing board again, start working on your product. So I cannot emphasize enough, all early founders, if you look at any successful startups, founders have been on the ground in the early stages of the company. So don't rely on your support staff to go and start engaging with the customer at this stage. Okay. Then as you start getting some traction, where you realize that you have at least your product is now in a decent shape, you really feel the need to hire a salesperson. only at that stage you should start worrying about hiring a salesperson. Don't hire a salesperson from the day one. It's a huge mistake, right? Build the product, go through few iterations with at least few customers. Let's say you are targeting 10 customer, at least 3 4 customers that you go through yourself first. Then you start worrying about bringing a salesperson on board. And first salesperson you bring on board, it's a critical hire, right? Typically what I have seen many startup, right, they may end up hiring a person from a big established companies. That's not the typical characteristics that you should be looking at this stage of the company. The salesperson, the ideal salesperson would be somebody who has already gone through, this phase of your growth, this phase of the company growth, right? Who is comfortable to have a product related conversation with your customer, right? Understand the overall product ecosystem, right? Should be able to help you qualify your customer engagement, right? Should be able to recognize the pattern across the number of conversation that he is having with the customers. Take those patterns out, bring it back to your product development team, work with them to get that product refined. So it's very critical to find a first salesperson who actually is a good mix of product management as well as your account executive mindset. I mean, many companies that I have seen, they end up hiring somebody, go for months, lose very valuable time, and that can be a fatal mistake. So that's why you have to be extremely careful who you bring on board at this stage of the company. The next stage is really demand generation, right? Don't go with the digital route, right? All the early engagement should come from your personal network. It could be your ex-colleagues, it could be your ex-colleagues' friends, it could be your friends' friends, or it could be the referrals coming from your investors. So that those are the ideal people to engage with. These are the type of people, right? They understand that you are building the product. They are willing to live with the shortcomings of the product at this stage, right? Knowing that there could be a lot of growing pains as they start using this solution. So that's why it's critical to leverage your personal network. Don't think about scaling digitally at this stage. Then coming down to, right, don't try to solve for the pricing, right? Pricing is a secondary at this stage. You really need that customer's commitment to use the product and be successful with it, right? And in that process, I would also say get some money, whatever you could, right? But don't hung up on maximizing your deal, right? This is not a time for that. The value, that it's the incredible value you are going to get out of this by getting his feedback to shape up your product, being a referral, it's priceless, right? So I've seen, like, a lot of times, even with the early ones, they're trying to uh, figuring out their business model, trying to negotiate very hard at early stage. This is not a time to do that. Okay. And last thing, at least when you hire a salesperson, keep your sales compensation simple, right? Don't It shouldn't be based on the commission, or if you achieve something, then you get this much, 20% based on this quota, or people. Don't get into that complicated commission equation. It should be very simple. It should be customer retention leading metrics. I would even say just treat them like any other employee. Give them stock options, right? Because they are very critical for your success of your product. So just keep things as simple as possible at this stage. Don't worry about coming up with a overall compensation structure for moving forward and so on. So these are the things that I feel that going from MVP to product market fit, if you follow this playbook, you have a pretty decent chance that you will be able to identify the pain point that you are solving. Its customers using, are they using it repeatedly, how much time they are spending in your product, monitoring all that. And if certain percentage of the customers start getting a value out of it, you have product market fit. Okay, so that kind of wraps up my conversation here. So I'm coming back to summary slide. I mean, as I said earlier, as Sandra said as well, product market fit is the most crucial stage. This is the stage which is going to make or break for the company. So be very cognizant about that. listen to your customers, quickly capture their feedback, implement that feedback into your product, change your overall go-to-market strategy based on that. At this stage, once you achieve product market fit, you should be ready to go to market. So you should be able to codify all your experience that you have achieved during product market fit, right? So that you can start scaling your venture for go to market, right? Then you can, at that stage, you can start, a goal for go to market is really, you need to be able to validate your business model, right? You should be, focus on your overall business metrics at that stage. Figure it out. What are the playbooks? Can you repeat those playbooks? Can I build the process around that playbook? The people I'm going to bring on board, can they help me build the process? Can, as per demand generation concern, can I, what kind of digital campaign that you need to learn, what kind of digital channel that you want to leverage? It should, the campaign should be Facebook, or it should be your LinkedIn campaign. So you have to go and figure that out, codify that essentially, right? As you go to the go to market stage. So once you think that you have achieved certain level of product market fit, that's the time to go and raise your series A. A lot of times, if you raise the series A much earlier, your investors are going to force you to achieve that, to start hitting those revenue metrics. That's not the time to do it. So I really feel that take your own time to achieve your product market fit, right? And if you don't achieve the product market fit, right, after you go through several iterations and you realize that, what, maybe this problem that I'm solving, it's not big enough for a customer. My solution is not really hitting those sweet spots that customer needs in order for them to keep using it. It's okay. At that stage, go and pivot to something else. This is also very critical factor. It's hard to let that baby go. And it's even more harder. Let's say you're shooting for 10, 20 customers and you get some early traction from one or two customers, and then you always have that hope that, hey, I'll be able to go and find more customers. So you basically just hanging on to that, right? It's a slow death. So I would say go figure that out quickly. If you are not, if you lose that passion, you lose that momentum, you think that, this is not a problem that I think that is going to, your gut will tell you that. So if you really reach to that stage, wrap it up or pivot to something else, go solve some other problem. This is really important. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's go and do something else, right? So a couple of things I would like to, before I finish, I would like to wrap up with. So finding a right mentor at early stage, it's very, very crucial. Somebody who has really gone through this exercises before, who really understand your journey well, has gone through that journey well, who could give you some invaluable tips, right? How to do certain things at certain stage. I think mentors are so crucial for your success, right? Don't underestimate their importance. So I highly, highly recommend for you, anyone to go and get that right mentor who could really help you guide as a guide for through your early stage of your journey. And secondly, also, for pre-series A funding, right? This early stage investors, it's really important to find the people who are investing for the joy of, the early stage startup, right? They really enjoy that aspect of it. They are not just for the sake of, getting fancy returns on their investment. These are the people, typically have been there, done that, or typically a lot of people who are in corporate world, the business leader, the technologists. Those type of peoples are the one, uh, those are type of investors really make the best investors for, I would say, for pre-series A company. And when I've been working with IN for last 4 years, so Indian Angel Network has a huge network of very accomplished technologists, business people who take their own time, really help the portfolio companies to guide them. So I will highly recommend you guys to explore IN as a potential investor for your any venture. Okay, so Sandra, with that, I wrap up my conversation. So thank you so much, everyone.
Hi. Thank you very much, Mr. Prashant Pahade. That was fantastic. I mean, you can surely look at the chat room here. A lot of people are commenting. Fantastic session, great session. Totally resonate with what you're trying to say here. And towards the end, what you said actually on the mentor piece, I wherever I go for all these forums where I'm talking, also, that's one piece where what I constantly keep telling a lot of entrepreneurs is that get expertise, mentors to kind of support you in terms of technology, in terms of business, and whatever they can bring onto the table along with you. I think that that's great value. And if you have a very seasoned mentor backing you up, that kind of actually adds a lot of value for the company also. Having said that, I think we'll open up for questions here. There are a lot of questions in this. Just give me a second. So one question from Karthik is: should we charge customer for MVP?
So should we charge customer for MVP? So Krishna, you think that MVP is going to give him a value? Have you even validated if has even, have you even tried that solution? Customer has even tried that solution is getting your value? I would say absolutely not, right? MVP is just a very first version. You're going to go through several iterations of MVP before you have some reasonable product in place. And as I said earlier as well in my conversation, idea is not to charge at this stage. I'm not saying give it away, right? I think you should still set the expectation, right? You should still try to get some money for it, but don't try to maximize it, and not at the MVP stage. It's really after the MVP gone through several iterations, customers really have adopted that solution, and you think that you'll be able to use it. Then is the time to go and have a pricing conversation with them.
Thank you. I think Karthik, you've got an answer on that. Moving on to the next one, how do you find product market fit once you've received your minimum viable product?
I think I described that in my conversation, right? How do you really achieve if you are providing the value to your customer, right? How do you measure how do you measure that? If customer is consistently using that product, right? Depending on the application that you have, is he using on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis? Then you have achieved that product. And if you're more than 50-60% of your customers are doing that, I think you have achieved the product market fit.
The next one is finding and creating. How do we reach the right audience?
I knew that was going to come. That's just a beginning of your journey, right? One of the things you got to be able to hustle, right? Go figure it out. Right audience to reach. As you're saying, like leverage your personal network. I think LinkedIn is your best friend. This is, in our time, this was a big hassle going on trying to find the people, reach out to them. Today, you go to LinkedIn, you can quickly figure it out. Who are the potential personas that you could go talk to, send them an email, right? And what you would find is people are a lot more willing to help entrepreneurs. So I would say leverage LinkedIn to reach out to your customers, leverage your personal network.
The next one is how do you reach product market fit using customer experience data? Where does CX data come in?
So CX data, that some of the things that I talked about, customer experience data was about, right? Customer retention is one aspect of customer experience, right? Sometimes, like say you are monitoring implementation time, right? How long does it take before customer sees the first, value to your first time to your first value, right? You start engaging with the customer, solution is deployed, and by the time he runs his use case through that, and then he sees that's the time to monitor. The idea is really to compress that time as much as possible. Your goal should be as soon as customer starts running it within depending on the application, it could be minutes, it could be hours, right? If you come down to that, so really capturing that implementation experience, capturing like overall ecosystem that your solution needs to fit in. So those are the type of metrics. Customer experience at this stage, it's really more about customer success. Customer experience is really the overall journey from starting the lead down to the renewal, So at this stage, you are more focused on more customer success centric metrics, which are really retention focus.
Okay. Moving on. How much attention should one put in their competitor's product?
Competitor's product. Okay. You always have to keep eyes on your competitors, right? But I really feel that if you believe in your product at this stage of the growth, don't worry so much about competitors, right? That's that time to worry about you do have to be cognizant as you start talking to customers, right? Are there competitors out there who are offering similar product, right? That you probably should be able to read from your customers, early friendly customers, if there are competitors out there, if they have similar product, are they offering similar type of advantage. So you need to be able, you should be keeping eye, and then because especially in early stage, right? If you realize that somebody has been doing it, but competition always going to be there, right? No matter what you do, we live in a hyper competitive world. It's always going to be there. So you have to be cognizant about your competition throughout. But don't get hung up on that early stage. Competition is a way of life. You just can't avoid it. You have to be able to go figure it out. Even after you achieve product market fit, you are in growth scale. There are two guys, smart guys out there sitting and figuring it out how to beat you, right? So you always have to be aware of that, no matter what stage of the growth is. But don't let that scare you, right? If you believe in what you are trying to do, the value you want to provide, figure a way out, right? Come up with the better ways than what competition is out there. So yes, you should be cognizant about competition.
Okay. How do we measure P, E, and T for services?
For services, right? Okay, that's interesting. I'm mostly a product guy, so I got to think about this. So P for services, right? The how many customers? I would say how many deliveries that you have been able to do successfully in a given time frame, right? And how many customers have come back to you, right? So essentially, for services are the long projects, right? They are very measurable. So typically, you assign the SOWs. You know exactly what time frame that you are shooting for, and the impact of that, right? So whether you are able to deliver that. Once you deliver that, then thing that you need to monitor is that being used consistently. So I would say in terms of P, again, I could be off here. As I said, I don't come from services side of the world, but on the surface, I would go with the time, how many deliveries that you have done, right? How many customers have been able to get the value out of that? So going with that sort of mindset.
Okay, now next one is again slightly out of your sector though. What kind of matrix can one measure or use to determining product market fit for food product startups?
Again, I think this food, right? Food is the easy thing, right? People consume the food and whether they like it or not, right? That's an easy thing, right? You go find a focus group, give them that, and see if they like it. You typically, people in food industry, they just conduct the surveys, right? For your consumer surveys. I think that's one way to know, right? If you think that because based on their feedback, if they're gonna go buy it again, I think you start with certain store, certain retailer, certain channel, and if people keep buying it again, then right? That people like. So I think you know but essentially the science is same, right? If people are buying it again, right, even for food, are they coming back to you and purchasing it again? If you can figure a way out, as I said, in case of food, right, you don't need to wait for long. Whether people like it or not, you'll know that quickly.
Okay.
Not sure if that was the right answer, but I think if I were like this, how I would go on looking at it.
Yeah. No, that's rightly said. I think customers are the biggest matrix. If they come in back again for more, that's clearly kind of showing that there's some real validation on the product. Moving on to the next one, is there any particular way or method or formula to measure product market fit?
I think I kind of talked about that, right? Looking at how many customers are adopted, right? You're coming up with leading indicator of customer retention. And again, that's more applicable to your more applicable to modern SaaS companies, but that's same true with the apps and so on too, right? So again, it's basically I kind of covered that in my talk.
Okay. This is slightly different from the topic that we're kind of addressing today. Investors want big names as customers before funding. Is this the right way to approach fundraising? If not, what should be the approach?
Again, it depends on which investor you are talking about, right? I think if you go to Series A type of investors, they will expect a lot of big logos and all that. The aim of this phase, it's really to be able to establish product market fit, right? I think if you go pre-Series A type of investors, I think they understand that, right? It's not a, you need to go through this experiment very quickly, and the ideal customers are small customers to engage, right? Not the big names. I mean, if you happen to have it, it of course helps. But what I said earlier, right? Stay away from that. It's not, there are always anomalies for everything. You may have a very friendly customer in working big company who just happen to be able to help you. Go get that. But by and large, for most of the people, that's not an option. So if your investor is really insisting on that, I don't think they are the right, they are necessarily the right investor at this stage of your startup.
Okay. What if the product is already there in the market, which is selling, but the competition is less? Would you still suggest any entrepreneur to go ahead and kind of start the business again, or drop the idea?
So let me understand this question again. So somebody already has a business and he stopped.
No. So what the question is, what if the product you are planning to sell is already there in the market, but with less competition?
Okay.
Right? Should you just start the business or drop the idea?
No, I don't. As I said earlier, don't get afraid with competition. Even if you have to start it, it's very likely that somebody's gonna, you're gonna see the new competition. Is that gonna make you close your business? Absolutely not, right? You have to figure a way out how to beat your competition. It's an ongoing exercise, right? And you come to the stage once the company gets to certain growth stage, then it's leapfrogging each other. You look around us. There's always a competition for every single thing, right? There's only, even for Apple, as dominant as it is, right? Even they have competition. There's always a competition. So I wouldn't make my decision based on whether to close a business, which is a very radical decision based on some competition. If you go out there, figure it out, your solution that you have, it's not providing enough value. Your competition is way, 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 way better. And you go through that exercise that, what, I ran out of this. I don't have enough funding to get this thing going. You may have to explore that option, but I would say that's very rare.
Okay. Once again, I'll just how do you price the SaaS solution?
How do you price the SaaS solution? Again, it depends on the past SaaS solution. Are you talking to the customer? Is your solution targeted for someone who is quickly, if you are reaching out the masses, right? If your potential is like 100,000 plus customers, and your value that, they're only going to use for a few minutes in a day, then, pricing would be accordingly that, right? I think that's a big topic, right? How you want to do the pricing, but in general, it's really depending on who your end personas are, right? What's a pain you are solving? Is it a big pain you are solving? And is it an enterprise oriented solution? Then pricing would be in a six-figure, right? Versus some simple app, right? It could be just $10 or $20. So typically what I would say, like, look at the similar type of solutions that are out there. May not be directly compared, would be exactly similar what you have. Understand what kind of pricing they have in place, right? So that bar is already set. That could be your basis. Then you figure it out, what sort of additional value that you provide, right? Quantify that value proposition, come up with the ROI for that. and then come up with your pricing based on that, because pricing also depends on what's your overall go-to-market strategy. If you are reaching to a masses through digitally, if it is a tech touch or low touch product, obviously pricing would be low. But if it's a high touch product where you need to put your experts to help customer adopt your solution, those are high pricing solutions. So you got to go through that sort of analysis. And a lot of that really begins with when you go and start, as you go through your initial hypothesis, analyzing your hypothesis, validating your hypothesis, you can start getting this idea up front, right? As you start having some conversation with your early customers, early cohort, you will be able to get some idea based on that.
Okay. The next one is how good is NPS an indicator for product market fit? It seems to be right metric, but at times customers may be too generous with their feedback, which may lull you into compliance's thoughts on that.
I agree. I think NPS in general are, it's a very subjective, right? It's not a quantifiable measure, right? Sometimes people, and it also depends on what type of NPS survey you are conducting. Like a lot of times, are you happy, very happy, not happy? What does that really tell you, right? It doesn't tell you much, right? Your NPS surveys typically are like that, right? Rate somebody on 5. It only tells you if customer is happy, or is this a referenceable customer, right? Somebody who gives 8 or 9, is it going to promote your solution? So it's some level of measure, I would say, but it's not the accurate one, right? So you can always conduct the NPS, but also that some of these NPS would come into a play only after certain little later stage in your journey. I would say more like even in product market fit, if customer is consistently using it, and they are kind of, so to read, I think, as I say, NPS is just as an average measure. It's not necessarily it's not an accurate measure of it. Early stage of product market fit, I would say just go reach out to those customers as much as possible instead of simply relying on survey. Call them, right? Spend time with them, understand that what their pain points are, what they feel about, right? Get their feedback. So I would say, at least for early stage, I would encourage to go and talk to them, right? Find better way to communicate than simply sending a survey and getting their response.
Okay. Next one, how long would a typical product market fit phase take?
Again, that depends on what problem you are solving, right? How well you are solving, who are the customers that you are working with, what's the competition that you have, and most important thing that are in your control, how quickly you are iterating, right? How tuned you are in with your customers in terms of capturing their feedback, productizing the overall experience, making changes in your product. It really depends on that, right? So, I would say for typical enterprise or some high touch customers, it could be months. I know, at least as the example that I was showing earlier, it could take 9 to 12 months before you even have. Some of my portfolio companies, they will work for good 2 years before they could say that they have achieved the product market fit. Some of them are in the enterprise space, but then it's simply simple application downloading and all that. You are monitoring daily DAUs, MAUs, achieving certain ratio of DAU, MAUs. That is easy to monitor. And if you can see that, over 50, 60, 70% of the downloads that people are regularly using your app, that you achieved it. So it really depends what application that you are trying to develop and who the market they are going after. So idea here is, what I would say is, segment your market as granular as possible, right? A lot of times people are, oh, okay, I can solve this problem, I can solve this buddy's problem, or that guy's problem, or that guy's problem, and you can lost your track. The idea really here is, zone in your end persona as much as possible. A lot of times people start with certain solution, it ends up becoming a horizontal solution. Then you think that I can solve this guy's problem, that guy's problem, that guy's problem, and you get lost in that process. Then obviously in those type of scenarios, to be able to figure it out, product market fit takes a long time. So my recommendation is, really have a very clear, crisp definition of the persona that you want to target, right? So if your product is generally applicable across 5 sectors, just pick one sector, even in that, pick one type of person and just go and focus on that. Really solve that guy's problem first. See if you're consistently able to replicate that and solve that problem consistently for that particular persona. At least at that, so you know that you achieve problem. But if you're really going and trying to solve everybody's problem, means you are not solving anybody's problem. And that's where a lot of people make a mistake. So your overall go-to-market strategy is very, very critical. A lot of mistakes happens during this phase, right? So I know it's very, oh, I can automate the process, but okay, fine. Who you going to automate for? Are those the guys who are doing certain processes for the manufacturing, for certain aspect of the manufacturing? How often they do that? So you really have to go as granular as possible and establish yourself in that particular use case first. So pick a low hanging use case first and establish there, right? So you have much better chance of achieving your product market fit.
The next one is, do we need functional app for food tech idea to build MVP, or is using WhatsApp group enough to kind of make the product fit?
So, I mean, I think, again, what this person is trying to tell me, don't build the MVP, even though it's a tech problem. And I think based on the feedback, I can build the MVP. I think WhatsApp is not an optimal way to get that feedback. Any tech solution that you want to build, you need to be closely interacting with your target audience, right? Don't rely on this. I personally always prefer going face to face, meet that person. I can ask a lot of open-ended questions, right? WhatsApp is not going to provide you the answers that you're going to get. They are going to be yes, no, this, that, very quantitative measure. You need open-ended answers, right? You are trying to find what that problem is. You're trying to investigate, right? You have to have investigatory mindset to do that. And definitely WhatsApp is not a medium to do that. I always say you go find that friendly audience that you can go talk to. Have a conversation, have a questionnaire ready, right? The questionnaire which can essentially quantify what is that problem, how critical that problem, how big is that problem. Then go through solution that what could be this potential, will this solution be, will this solve this? Is this really something that you want to go up? So go through the same step that I described. Doesn't matter what type of tech idea that you are going after. There's no substitute to that. Otherwise, you will be going somewhere down the road. You build MVP, go through all that pain, and the first time the customer started using it, he's trying to solve the problem, and you realize that you solve problem Z, right? That's not an optimal way to solve to come up with MVP.
I think in the interest of time, probably I'll take one or two more questions. So the next one is, what about physical product in the personal hygiene domain? The manufacturing setup cost is high. How do approach with?
So again, I'm not the expert in this, but what I have seen when some of these companies come to IN, I think a lot of these companies, they essentially come up with the formulas, right? They even, some of those guys, just like you develop your software in garage, right? They also develop some of these, chemistries in their garage, right? Take that out there and, go talk to people, get their feedback. I would think it would be similar thing. I think fundamentally concepts should be similar that what I just said, which is what at least some of the companies that I have come across have done that. Typically the people who are coming with some formulas for this, they come up with some formulas, manufacture it, maybe go and find. You don't want to go and build a factory before you even know that this sells, how people want it, right? It's the same thing. Am I building a product, full-fledged product, before even I know if I'm really solving the problem or there's an interest for customer? Same thing here, right? Find a way to quickly go through that cycle. Again, in this case, you develop that formula, have it, have people try that. If you really need to manufacture, go to some third party to manufacture that. And manufacturing, as you said, it's such an expensive proposition. It's even after you think that you have established certain traction in the market, it requires heavy investment. So that decision is much later in your startup journey.
Okay. I think this is not completely relevant to the topic, but building a edtech startup in a small town, is this advisable? And I'm just clubbing two questions here. How does one find a mentor at an early stage?
Okay. So uh, I think there is, I think world has changed, right? Pandemic has changed, right? It has basically, we now live in borderless world, right? It doesn't matter where you are sitting now, right? In fact, the small place guy, if he has found some interesting challenges that he sees in his community, in his surrounding, and that the guy is living in big city haven't really found that out, absolutely that's the ideal scenario, right? Because you have found something that big guys are not, or big boys, or city guys are not paying attention. Because I feel that tier 3, tier 4, rural areas, whole lot of bigger market for this than your urban market. So as far as small guy doing a startup in small places, absolutely highly recommended, highly encouraged. Don't worry, absolutely, right? And as and when you need any help, there are always mentors out there. You can talk to them. But if you have developed certain unique insight into your local market, go and solve it. And as far as finding a mentor, I think I again tend to leverage LinkedIn a lot, right? I think there are also networks, right, Sandro? I think we actually have, like, if you come to website like IN, we have basically a list of a lot of people who are willing to be a mentor. So I would say, and you similarly, you will find, Google is the best friend, right? See who is willing to. And a lot of times when you go to LinkedIn profile, people who want to be mentor, they do describe that in their LinkedIn profile, right? They would even say that they have been board of advisors, right? So those are the people who have already been mentors. So they'll be more willing to be your mentor.
Yeah, true that. In fact, I've seen a lot of examples where I've met a lot of entrepreneurs who've got really seasoned mentors backing them up, and most of them have got them through actually approaching them through the LinkedIn process. They kind of write to them and then they take discussion forward from there.
Correct. Correct.
So thank you, sir, for this. With this, we come to an end of our virtual chai time. I take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to for Mr. Prashant Pahade. So thank you very much for taking out time and sharing your valuable insight and how to deliver the perfect pitch. Uh, I, on behalf of Indian Angel Network and with my team, Divya and Shivani, thank you once again. We also thank our partner, Amazon Web Services, for fostering and supporting the entrepreneurship ecosystem. Thank you very much. And we hope to see you soon with our next Chai Dance Masterclass series.
Thank you so much for guys to give me an opportunity to share my experience. I appreciate time you have taken. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.